time you felt weak or out of control. What was really happening? It wasn't the world overpowering you, it was you losing control over yourself. Because the truth most people refuse to face is this: the greatest threat to your success is not outside of you, it's within you. Your anger that explodes too quickly, your distractions that pull you away from what matters, your need for validation that makes you say yes when you should walk away. These are not small issues, these are cracks in your foundation, and anyone who understands human behavior can see those cracks and use them. A man who cannot control his emotions is easy to manipulate. Push his ego, he reacts. Ignore him, he chases. Challenge him, he proves himself unnecessarily. He becomes predictable without even realizing it, and predictability is weakness. Because once someone can predict you, they can control the outcome before you even act. Now imagine the opposite. A man who does not react instantly. A man who pauses, observes, thinks. You insult him, he doesn't explode. You ignore him, he doesn't chase. You test him, he doesn't perform for your approval. Suddenly, you don't know how to deal with him. He becomes difficult to read, difficult to influence, and that uncertainty, that's power. This is what mastering your inner world looks like. It's not about suppressing emotions like a robot. It's about controlling how and when those emotions are expressed. It's about choosing your response instead of being dragged by your impulses. Because every impulse you fail to control is a moment where you lose authority over your own life. Think about it. How many times have you planned to do something important and then didn't, not because you couldn't, but because you didn't feel like it? That's not lack of ability, that's lack of control. And if your actions depend on how you feel in the moment, then your life will always be inconsistent. One day you're focused, the next day you're distracted. One day you're disciplined, the next day you're lazy. That inconsistency destroys progress. Self-mastery eliminates that. When you master yourself, you stop negotiating with your feelings. You stop asking, do I feel like doing this? And start saying, this needs to be done. And then you do it. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly until discipline becomes automatic, because real power is not in big, dramatic moments. It's in the small decisions you make every single day, waking up when you said you would, doing the work even when it's boring, staying focused when distractions are everywhere. These moments seem insignificant, but they are where control is built. And slowly, something starts to change. Your mind becomes sharper. Your actions become more precise. Your emotions become quieter, more contained. You begin to feel less reactive and more intentional. Now, here's where it gets dangerous in a good way. When you gain control over your inner world, external things lose their power over you. People's opinions, less impact, rejection, less emotional damage, pressure, easier to handle, because your state is no longer dictated by what happens around you. It is dictated by what you choose within you, and that creates stability. Most people are unstable. Their mood changes based on small events. Their confidence rises and falls depending on validation. Their decisions are influenced by fear, stress, and emotion. But when you are stable, when you are grounded, you become something rare. Someone who can be relied on, someone who doesn't break under pressure, someone who doesn't lose control when things go wrong. And that kind of person naturally commands respect, not because they demand it, but because they embody control. But understand this clearly: mastering your inner world is not comfortable. It requires you to face yourself honestly, to admit where you lack discipline, to recognize where your emotions control you, to accept that you are responsible for your current state. And then to do something about it. It means saying no to comfort, no to distraction, no to temporary pleasure when it conflicts with long-term growth. It means choosing the harder path repeatedly, even when no one is watching, even when there is no immediate reward. Because you are not doing it for recognition, you are doing it to build control. And once that control is established, everything changes. Your decisions become sharper, your presence becomes stronger, your actions become more effective. You stop reacting to life and start directing it. You are no longer easily influenced, no longer easily shaken, no longer easily controlled. And that is where real power begins. You've been taught, directly or indirectly, that being a good man means being available, being agreeable, being easy to access. Say yes more, help everyone, don't disappoint people, don't be selfish. And slowly, without realizing it, you start giving away the most valuable things you have. Your time, your energy, your focus. Not because people forced you to, but because you felt obligated to. And that's where the problem begins. Because the moment your time becomes easily available, your value begins to drop. Not in your eyes, but in theirs. People don't respect what is always accessible. They don't value what is always given freely. And if you are constantly saying yes, constantly adjusting yourself to fit others, constantly sacrificing your priorities, you don't look strong, you look easy to use. Now understand this clearly. Prioritizing yourself is not about becoming arrogant. It's not about ignoring everyone or acting superior. It's about understanding that if you don't take your own life seriously, no one else will. Look at your daily decisions. How often do you delay your own work because someone else asked for your time? How often do you say yes when you know you should say no? How often do you stay in conversations, environments, or relationships that drain you just to avoid discomfort? That's not kindness, that's a lack of boundaries. And without boundaries, your life will always be controlled by other people's expectations. The man who becomes impossible to ignore doesn't operate like that. He is selective. His time is not open to everyone. His energy is not given to everything. His attention is not easily captured. And because of that, everything about him feels more valuable. When he speaks, people listen because he doesn't speak often. When he shows up, people notice because he's not always around. When he gives his time, it means something because it's limited. This is what prioritizing yourself actually looks like. It's not loud, it's not aggressive, it's controlled. You stop over-explaining your decisions. You stop justifying why you can't do something. You stop feeling guilty for choosing your own growth over someone else's convenience. Because deep down, you understand something most people ignore. Your life is your responsibility, not theirs, and every time you give away your time to things that don't matter, you are delaying your own progress. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. When you start prioritizing yourself, people will react. Some will question you. Some will call you selfish. Some will say you've changed, and they're not wrong. You have changed because you are no longer operating in a way that benefits everyone else at your expense. You are no longer the person who is always available, always agreeable, always easy to access, and that disrupts the dynamic they were used to. But that discomfort, that tension, that's a sign you're doing it right. Because growth requires separation. You cannot evolve while maintaining the same patterns that kept you stuck, so you start making different choices. You protect your time like it matters because it does. You invest your energy into things that build you, skills, discipline, focus. You walk away from situations that don't align with your direction without needing approval. And slowly, something shifts. You feel more in control, more focused, more intentional. You're no longer reacting to every message, every request, every distraction. You decide what deserves your attention, and that decision-making power, that control over where your energy goes, that's what creates momentum. Most people never experience real progress because their attention is scattered. They start something, then get distracted. They plan something, then get pulled into something else. They want growth, but they keep giving their time to things that don't support it. And then they wonder why nothing changes. But when you prioritize yourself, you eliminate that noise. You become consistent. Your actions align with your goals. Your time reflects your priorities. Your focus becomes sharper. And consistency builds results. Now here's the deeper layer. When you start valuing your own time and energy, other people begin to notice. Not because you told them to, but because your behavior changed. You're less available, less reactive, less eager to please, and that creates a different perception. People start respecting your boundaries. They think twice before wasting your time. They value your attention more, because it's not easily given. This is how power shifts, not through force, not through dominance, but through control. Control over yourself and control over what you allow into your life. Because at the end of the day, prioritizing yourself is about alignment. Your actions match your goals. Your time reflects your values. Your energy is invested, not wasted. And once that alignment is established, everything becomes clearer. Decisions become easier, distractions become weaker, your path becomes more defined. You stop feeling pulled in different directions because you know exactly what matters and what doesn't. And when a man reaches that level of clarity, he becomes difficult to influence, difficult to distract, difficult to control, because he is no longer operating based on external pressure. He is operating based on internal standards. And those standards don't bend for convenience. Look around you, everyone is talking, everyone is explaining themselves, proving themselves, broadcasting every move, every thought, every emotion. It's constant noise, and in that noise, something important gets lost, you. Because the more you speak without purpose, the less weight your words carry. Most men think attention comes from being louder, more expressive, more visible. They believe if they say more, show more, explain more, they will be respected. But the opposite happens. They become predictable, easy to read, easy to understand, and once people fully understand you, they stop being curious about you. Curiosity is what creates attention, and silence builds that curiosity. The man who becomes impossible to ignore understands something subtle but powerful. He doesn't need to constantly express himself to be felt. His presence speaks before his words do. He doesn't rush to fill every silence. He doesn't jump into every conversation. He doesn't explain every decision he makes, and because of that, people start paying closer attention. They watch him more. They listen more carefully when he does speak. They try to figure him out, because there's something missing, and that missing creates tension. That tension is attention. Now think about the opposite. The man who talks too much, who explains everything, who constantly shares his plans, his opinions, his emotions, what happens to him. People stop listening, not because what he's saying is wrong, but because it's too available, too exposed. There's no mystery, no depth left to explore. When everything is revealed, nothing feels valuable. Silence protects value. It gives your words weight. It gives your actions space to be noticed. It forces people to interpret you instead of being spoon-fed information about you. And when people are forced to interpret, they invest attention. Now understand this clearly: silence is not weakness. It's not insecurity. It's not avoidance. It is control. It's the ability to hold back when others feel the urge to speak. It's the discipline to observe instead of react. It's the awareness to know that not every situation requires your input. Because most situations don't. Most conversations don't need your opinion. Most arguments don't deserve your response. Most people don't require your explanation, but men who lack control feel the need to insert themselves everywhere. They react to everything. They respond to every message immediately. They try to correct, impress, or prove themselves in every interaction. And in doing so, they lose presence, because presence is not built through constant activity, it's built through controlled absence. When you are always talking, always available, always responding, you blend into the background. But when you are selective, when you choose when to speak, when to show up, when to engage, you stand out. Your silence creates contrast, and contrast creates focus. People begin to notice when you are there and when you are not. Now here's where silence becomes powerful in a deeper way. It allows you to observe. When you're not busy talking, you start seeing things others miss. You notice how people behave, how they react, what they reveal through their actions. You begin to understand dynamics. Who seeks validation, who tries to dominate, who follows, who leads. And that awareness gives you an advantage, because you're not just participating, you're analyzing. While others are exposing themselves through constant communication, you are gathering information. And information is power. You start responding more strategically. You speak less, but when you do speak, it's precise. It's intentional, it carries weight, and people feel that difference immediately because your words are no longer filler, they are decisions. Now combine that with controlled behavior, disciplined actions, and self-priority, and your silence becomes even more impactful. You're not silent because you have nothing to say. You're silent because you choose when it matters to say it. And that choice, that restraint, builds authority. People begin to associate your voice with importance. Because it's rare, scarcity increases value. If you speak all the time, your words become common. If you speak selectively, your words become significant. And this doesn't just apply to speech. It applies to everything: your presence, your availability, your attention. The less you overextend these things, the more powerful they become. Now here's the part most people struggle with. Silence feels uncomfortable at first. You'll feel the urge to explain yourself, to respond quickly, to fill gaps in conversation. That urge comes from habit and from insecurity, the need to be understood, the need to be accepted, the need to stay relevant in the moment. But when you resist that urge, when you allow silence to exist without rushing to fill it, something changes. You feel more in control, more grounded, less dependent on external reactions. And people feel that shift. Because you're no longer seeking attention, you're allowing it to come to you. And attention that comes naturally is far more powerful than attention you chase. Now think about how this transforms your presence. You walk into a room, not trying to impress, not trying to dominate, not trying to prove anything. You observe first, you speak when necessary, you act with intention, and without saying much you're noticed. Because in a world addicted to noise, the man who controls his silence becomes impossible to overlook. His restraint feels different, his calm feels deliberate, his presence feels heavier, and that weight, that quiet confidence, that controlled expression is what separates him from everyone else. Look at the world you're